Hello, everyone, and welcome to Experience the Power of Love, Peace, and Harmony. My name is Eun Ji, and I'll be your host for today. And today's featured guest speaker and teacher is Venier Wong. In the first part of the program, join Venier and I for a holistic conversation as part of our ongoing series this month on Women's International Day, which was held on March 8th and is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. This day also marks a call to action for accelerating women's equality. And Venier will also lead the Love, Peace, Harmony practice in the second part of the program today. A little bit more background on our very special featured guest and teacher. Venier Wong has a deep passion for service and has dedicated her life to service. Venier is a Tao Chung master teacher and healer at the Master Sha Tao Center Global in Toronto, where she is a co-lead for the Health and Wellness Program and former director of the Love, Peace, and Harmony Foundation. Her deep wisdom and unique skills in how to effectively apply the Tao healing system for chronic and life-threatening conditions stems from her profound healing journey, miraculously living with cancer for 12 years as she continues to live her life's purpose. Venier inspires and supports others to access and uplift their heart's resilience, courage, and to heal and realize their soul's potential to create the life that they want. In addition to being a Tao Chung master teacher and healer, Venier has over 25 years of experience in transformative leadership, social change education, process consultation, and organizational change and effectiveness. Venier has designed innovative health, social service, and restorative healing and justice policies and programs. She has led strategic planning, program evaluation, equity, education, training, and capacity building initiatives for communities, public sector institutions, international NGOs, and governments. Venier has worked on vital humanitarian issues such as human rights, mental health, poverty and homelessness, violence against women and children, social economic justice, and gender and racial equality. Her dedicated service to others has taken her and her work to Africa, the Caribbean, Central America, Europe, Southeast Asia, and the United States. And without any further ado, I would love to please introduce our very, very special featured guest, Venier Wong, to the program.
Thank you, Eun Ji, and thank you, the Love, Peace, Harmony Show, and everyone joining us worldwide. My understanding is that we're streaming from live stream to YouTube and also the Love, Peace, Harmony Facebook page. Thank you, everyone. So I'm on the other side today. Eun Ji, our wonderful host today, is going to ask me different questions that's in her heart about myself, about International Women's Day, the significance, and we invite you to ask questions in the chat, and our team will let us know. Eun Ji can see the chat. Zakota will give us information on other platforms. So I'm all yours. Eun Ji, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Seeing as how this month's theme is celebrating and honoring, International Women's Day, just doing a little background look into it. This month's theme, and the theme of International Women's Day for this year is actually accelerating equality and empowerment, how women's leadership and collective action can make a difference. And this is something that I understand you've done throughout, the totality of your career as a humanitarian, working in education, working in the public and, social sectors in so many various areas. And, there was actually an inspiring write-up on the website that I wanted to read out and to kind of serve as a springboard of inspiration for today. And what they wrote was, we can all truly embrace equity. It's not just something we say. It's not just something we write about. It's something we need to think about, know, value, and embrace. It's what we believe in unconditionally. equity means creating an inclusive world. And so with that, I wanted to ask, how do you feel about this? And how did you in your own life, you know, champion for embracing equity in this world?
Thank you, Eun Ji. That's a very beautiful statement that whoever authored that or penned that. I think the main thing is we have to start with understanding the world that we've come into and finding our place in that world. So for myself, this is the honest truth. I remember when I was 2 years old very clearly. I was out on the porch, couldn't go very far. And we lived in a community in Toronto here for those that, are friends worldwide. It was considered old Chinatown. And we had these beautiful big old chestnut trees on our street. And I really looked out. I looked out when the adults were really busy. I lived in a household when we first moved to Canada. There were 17 people living in a home. So that is probably not so common for most people's life experience, particularly if you come from generational wealth or been privileged to be multi-generation living in a first world country. We came as immigrants. And so it was natural to be in a household with so many people. So my only little go-to space for quietness was to go out on the porch. And I remember really looking up. It was like something in my heart. I always remember it to this day. I just looked up and I thought, why am I here? In the consciousness of the 2-year-old, why am I here? What are these trees saying? They're magnificent and they're huge. And why am I born to this family? Right? And what I knew inside was these were messages. My soul was guiding me to connect, even as a 2-year-old, to a larger world. And I may not have had the full vocabulary of the languages, which is Cantonese and Toisan, but also was learning English. But there was something beyond that physical structure. And I felt the trees talk to me. And it was something more magnificent beyond my life or anyone's life in the adult sense. And I think curiosity, that curiosity in just some small way in downtown Toronto connecting to nature allowed me to realize that the world was much more than we perceived it to be. And then over the, couple of years after that, I remember clearly being able to see with my spiritual channels, ah, there is more than a physical existence. And I now call that a soul reality. There's a human reality and construct, but there's something more magnificent and larger, which was a spiritual reality. And as I got older, I was able to determine for myself that one had to have great agency to act. I use the word agency very intentionally because if you came from a certain generation or environment or a certain time period, women in particular of that particular time period, you got to remember my mother would be someone who was born, before the war, during the war, and then lived through her refugee experience through China, Hong Kong, and World War II and more. So that set her reality and how she parented me. And so gender, class, race, language, period of immigration or displacement, all was in my field, right? Parents lived through war, they lived through being refugees, they lived being displaced, they lived making a very vital choice to move to this country, be sponsored by my grandfather. It was either to go to the United States or go to Canada. And I love our American friends, but I was really grateful they chose Toronto. And so for me, there were so many expectations, right, of what a woman and a girl should be and shouldn't be. And a lot of that was fear based, and a lot of that is influenced by patriarchy and also by circumstances where we could live. We were very much aware, and I was very much aware, if you moved out of Chinatown even one block, the level of hostility or racism towards you and other kind of negativity was very prevalent. So we were guided as a child, don't go there, stay in this neighborhood, be careful. And that was not really based on anything other than the negativity and the lack of love and compassion, or in our language, lack of love, peace, and harmony directed towards you. And
Mhm.
so for me, I had all these expectations that were based on power, how I should be, how I shouldn't be. Well, I have a little rebel spirit in me. And so for me, it may seem innocuous, Unji, that you could wear a pair of jeans, right? Seems
Right.
innocuous, but it was a big deal that I chose to wear blue jeans. Like we're living in a different time period. It was a radical statement. Okay. I didn't wear a dress. Very radical. Not so radical right now. But these are forms of expression and identity and agency. For me, there were many things I saw that were wrong in the neighborhood, in the schools, and in the global reality, right? We had one little black and white TV that we shared with all these people. We didn't get many stations. The net didn't exist back then. So your only discernment in navigating life was the adults, the peers, your friends, your extended family. That's all to say, how does equity matter to me? How did I come into this work? I would say it's through my lived reality and observation of others. And I made a decision when I was very young to not just be victimized and subjected to these systems and these cultural expectation and of course inherent bias. I made a decision that I want to, as a young person, to have agency in my life, and I had to participate in creating the world that I want it to be, not just for myself but for everyone. You know, if I can tell some small stories, girls were not allowed to play certain sports in gym. We had to wear bloomers. People don't even know what that is. We had to cover up, right? Why? I used to say this. I remember I was 12 years old and I thought, it was a bit funny. I said, can we not play soccer and hockey and street hockey, which is what I grew up in? We played street hockey because we didn't have money for skates or belong to clubs. But you never stop a child that wants to discover the world. And really, it was as simple as they didn't think it was polite, right, for females to play certain sports, perceived a little aggressive, a little loud, a little whatever. And the other thing, and gee, I led a little protest. I wanted to do industrial arts, right? I wasn't allowed to participate in industrial arts, neither was any girl. Only boys had industrial arts as their mainstay, and girls had to learn home economics. Listen to that word, home economics. It was assumed we would be only homemakers, or our value would only be given to us in society and life if we knew how to be good housewives. Sounds ridiculous, but worldwide, this is going on still. It just has different permutations. So we had to learn to cook, we had to learn to clean. And I remember one day I said to an economics teacher, you got to be kidding me. You're asking us, how will we clean the chandeliers? Look around. We are all immigrant kids, racialized kids, or low income, first, generation Italian, Portuguese, and more. How
Mhm.
many of us have chandeliers in our
Mm.
living room and take those little crystals? But that was the disconnect, right? Yeah, you're laughing because
Yeah.
we were evaluated on that. Can you imagine your school being evaluating on you? So it's preposterous, but it's real. And that was my upbringing in an education system that was so stratified based on gender, based on expectations, and more. So I just share that as a bit of humor because for this generation, you might say, what?
Isn't
So
that just
fast
like a YouTube
forward.
tutorial away? Like you were actually graded on that? That's wild to me. My goodness.
No, absolutely. It's how well you could cook and clean. And the go-to meal was tuna casserole. Never had tuna casserole in my life. That's also the cultural component, right? You enter a system that doesn't recognize that you have cultural norms or values or contributions or skills, talent or intelligence or abilities, right?
Mm.
And you need to be fitted in and molded. And if you question, you're deemed as problematic and you're sent to the principal's office. So just want to say that. So I would say from those little humble beginnings of really connecting to the universe, there was something larger and greater that told me I had purpose beyond what I understood as a child. And then going into the school system the way that it was, that really is somewhat better. It is, for sure. There's been progress, but that really shaped me. And then, of course, being consciously connected to the larger social change movements happening around the world, even though I was young, obviously my soul is very connected to a global change of love, peace, and harmony informed by the social forces of that day. And that
Mm,
was the LGBTQI movement, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, and just bringing attention to our humanity, the way that it was and the way it needs to be. So that fueled me to go into nonprofit, also in terms of paid work, in which I both volunteered, but also worked in a variety of issues that you mentioned, so I won't go into. And everything that really came to be was really around I'm on this planet for a limited time. How do I want to spend my time? What do I want to do to make a contribution to the world that I believe in that should be equitable, loving, kind, and compassionate for everyone and everything,
mm,
regardless of the ideology or the economic, social, political circumstances that try to tell us differently and those conditions, right, impacting us in our reality. So, equity is the theme for International Women's Day in this month. And the word equity is really important because it goes beyond a pluralistic liberal notion of equality. You pronounce it and therefore it shall be. Well, if we take a look at the constitutions around the world, but especially United States, which are our neighbors, right? Hello, our American friends. They had a constitution that had a whole revolution, in terms of against colonial power named Britain and England. And yet that constitution enshrined slavery and women not existing as people, and African American people as chattel. So that's an example of why making pronunciations legal and more is not enough. We clearly can see that change can only be measured by equity. And equity is a deeper level about our lived social realities, right?
mm,
So that's how we should measure progress and love, peace, and harmony, not who's on the highest point of the social, political, economic ladder, right? But is that applicable, this reality condition applicable to everyone on the bottom of the social ladder? And it should be this horizontal, holding all souls, that we breathe the same air, we live on the same planet. What are the structures, service programs, policies, and laws that need to change? I was saying to a young person not too long ago that their perception was, well, Venier, you're a really strong person, and there is a lot of equality. And I said, well, what does that look like for you?
mm,
What does it look like for me? And then what does it look like for a person who lives in Sierra Leone, for
mm,
another person that lives in Ecuador, for a person that lives, in Nunavut?
mm,
Looks different. So for me, equity is about true equality, which is measured by the individual's life circumstance. We don't get to decide we've reached equity or equality by our current circumstance. We need to ask a more deeper question: who's left out of the picture? Who is invisible? What are the questions we're not asking? What is it we're not listening or seeing? And then those voices are supported to define their own empowerment, their own agency, their own purpose. And as allies, friends, and supporter, or someone genuinely interested in social equality and social change, all with the thread of love, peace, and harmony, we are supporters. And that's the difference. Thank you, NG. I hope you enjoyed my little stories.
Oh my goodness, I love this so much. I could listen to you literally all day. This is incredible. I'm kind of sad that you stopped yourself there. No, but thank you. Everything that you shared, your lived experience, your heart, your soul, and really your vision for love, peace, harmony. I think sometimes some of us might think love, peace, harmony. That's such a beautiful statement, such beautiful words. Absolutely. But what does it look like in our reality, in every single human being's lived experience? Like you said, for the person in Sierra Leone, for the person in Ecuador, for the person literally everywhere in the world, and for women in the world as well. And so thank you for bringing it back down to earth into action, because I think it's really, really important that we can just, again, I know sometimes for myself, just it can be very easy to theorize love, peace, harmony.
Mhm.
But what's important is to understand the application of it, the action, because it really has the most realist, ramifications for all of us. And yeah, it just takes so much, courage of heart. And it's so amazing because you were describing as a 2-year-old that like you already had that innate sense of questioning, of being curious about the world, but also that innate sense of empowerment, just knowing that, okay, this is how things are, but this is how things could be and should be. And I'm going to do everything I can to align with that, with the positive change. So thank you for being the change maker that you are. And another aspect of being the change maker that you are for everyone, for the world, and for yourself and for your own health, just kind of wanted to bring up about how, you've been such a powerful advocate for, yes, social movements, but also for people's health and wellness as well, which, you know, I just said that as two separate statements, but in reality, they are one. And I know that this is something that, with again, your lived experience, you understand very deeply and holistically how they're connected. And for personally, for yourself, I know that you've shared before about how, um, your state with your personal health. We mentioned in the bio up top about how 12 years ago you were diagnosed with cancer, and actually with stage 4 breast cancer. And with this, I imagine that the majority of people who receive this diagnosis don't feel like they have a lot of agency,
Mhm.
feel like they have a lot
Yeah.
of choice.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I just want to acknowledge Unji afterwards. Maybe we can ask the audience some questions too. So
Absolutely.
to respond to that, I think you may have noticed in my story that I had a strong will, you know, and some of us can experience a lot of things in our life from trauma, whether it's sexual violence or racism, systemic abuse, um, being displaced from your family, torn away in war and conflict, and more, or growing up in abject poverty, or being taken away from your family and culture and put in residential schools, right? There are not, sadly, there are no shortage of the ways that human beings can act in most inhumane way towards one another. So I think that inside of me, and I would say probably from my many lifetimes, including this one, especially this one, was an opportunity to serve. And so service is really at my heart, and volunteerism in nonprofits or for profits and still volunteering, taking the issues which are local in our personal life, making a larger connection to the global macro level. And at the same time, global macro issues are our individual responsibility wherever we are, whoever we are, wherever we live. And so what attracted me to Master Sha was, in addition to be spiritually guided, and that's exactly what happened. I was spiritually guided to meet him through my spiritual channels. And the message I heard him say that night and back in 2008 in September in Toronto on a special show was, I have the power to heal myself. You have the power to heal yourself. Together we have the power to heal and transform the world. It resonated with me so deeply.
Mhm.
Not only was his soul and his heart so radiant and truthful and full of integrity, because you could feel it across the television screen, But the message itself really deeply resonated with me because my work's life purpose is self empowerment. And those that can, play a facilitative role to support others in their own empowerment. The difference is for me, it's not about me empowering you, because that still suggests a role that I have in doing for you. It's really about my role to support you in your own self empowerment. That is the difference with self agency, with support and mentoring and more. So when I heard that message, I was not specifically at the time working in a health specific field, but what it deeply penetrated in my heart was the possibility to take what he was saying about the universe really being within us and what can we do to tap into it to help others. That was really profound. And so I had many people in my life up to that point who transitioned from cancer. And in fact, many people currently, including my godson, was facing that. And when I asked the universe and the magnificent trees, they're not necessarily in physical form, but they are always in my heart. They're temples on Mother Earth. They still exist. Those ancient forests, trees, and more still exist in energetic form. And what I heard very clearly was that this special soul will take you on your soul journey. No idea what that was, because although I knew in all the small little things I was privileged to work on, humbled to contribute to, and so grateful to learn from, there was something missing. Be it I worked in the labor sector, the education sector, gender and development sector, homelessness, mental health, and more. There was always something missing, and that was the spiritual component that could tie this all together to promote healing. Justice, social change cannot occur without transformation. Inner transformation is the true revolution to affect the outer revolution. But we have to be in a place to heal. We have to be in a place to heal so we can rediscover and reawaken the humanity which is within us and all souls and everyone. So, being with Master Sha, that was a really profound statement. No idea at the time I would develop cancer myself. So I met my spiritual teacher, an incredible human being, an extraordinary humanitarian. And then my physical health took on this manifestation called cancer. So I was at a point of making a decision. Which modality would I use? And there was no question in my mind I would use the modality of Tao healing system that Master Sha created. And I had the ability to participate and witness it. I also was open, of course, to conventional treatment, naturopathic treatment, energetic treatment, traditional Chinese medicine, because I fundamentally believe in choice. Everyone has a choice to their health modality and healthcare. And I was looking for an integrative space. But at the time, when one would want to work with the medical system, which was my case, I was willing to contemplate it. They were not willing to work with me. They were not willing to consider integrative healing as complementary. It was really either this or we're not really going to support you because none of this other stuff works. It's kind of like out there. And so it already set an environment of potential disagreement and conflict. And also, I didn't feel comfortable with the science behind medical oncology, the way that it was described. I'm not saying it doesn't have value, it certainly does. But in that pathway, not being open to anything else. And certainly it set a relationship where I was participating in a system where they could not see my totality, right? And support me in my own decision making at my own pace, in my own empowerment. So therefore, I said, no, thank you. I am very grateful to learn subsequently over the years, there are pockets, right, in mainstream medicine that does allow for that. In British Columbia, they're better at integrative care relating to cancer than they are in Ontario, just as an example. In certainly other countries, like in Germany and other places, they're more open to integrative care. And I just really reinforce everyone has the right to choose what's best for them. So to step back in my journey in cancer, what it's done for me was I was able to tap into Master Sha's Tao healing system, but I was also able to tap into things which I believe I had the grace of the divine to cultivate, which is courage, service, strength, willpower, because I believe in this modality, in Master Sha's modality, and I believe in that original message I received when I was 2. You know, the universe is within us. We have a greater purpose than the circumstance of our lives. And cancer is a physical medical condition, which some may know it almost took my life many times over 12 years. But I've outlived that prognosis of 6 to 12 months. It's been 12 years. And the only way I could do it was to participate in my own empowerment with Master Sha's teachings, his healing wisdom, his healing technology, like transformative calligraphy art, and of course, mantras and songs and a change of consciousness like love, peace, and harmony. Thank you. Any
Thank you
comments
so
or
much.
questions?
Yes, absolutely. We have many, many. We have so many people from all over the world saying hello, sharing their love. Darlene says, I remember my mom in my account, they said they could not go to school when they were younger if they had pants on. They walked to school in the morning time in pants and had to take them off in class. Wow, those were the policies back then. Glad things have changed. Um,
Love to
Carolyn,
your mom.
Karen Risler from Germany says, love hearing from you, Venier. Darlene, she's from California, sending much love. Hello from California. Women do everything here. Siraj says, my my group who values, women, girls, children, and the socioeconomic conditions of society gives positions in our Indian constitution. You'll be glad to know that we have awarded 4 social active ladies across India in International Women's Day. Thank you so much, Suraj, for sharing. Dana says, thank you for these insights. Barbara says, thank you for your valuable insights. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Okechukwu. Hello, it's my first time being here. God bless all women. Thank you. Thank you so much. And messages of vibrant health to everyone. And yes, we have more messages on our live stream as well. Greatest love from Sean, from Susan, from Attica, from Janet, from London, from Toronto, Ottawa. Greatest love from Sybil in Turkey, from Colorado. Judy says, I'm chuckling because I experience many of the same things, even though I was born into the Bible Belt in Kansas to white parents.
Mm. Thank
Mhm.
you, Judy. Thank you, everyone worldwide. So maybe I can bring a couple of comments. You know, I was reflecting on this, and those that joined our show last week, take a chance to watch it again. You know, a great friend of mine, Nancy Cooper, who is from the Rama First Nations here, you know, has been serving Indigenous communities for more than 30 years. And I remember meeting her. We were very young. She was 24 years old. And she met me at City Hall, and I was organizing something to bring attention to violence against women and children. And I want to just speak about that because, you know, I wanted to share something lighthearted and about how our values and attitudes have changed, right? And it has changed for the better. But why is this issue so pressing? And why is there still a need to bring attention? Part of the history of International Women's Day, and I hope one day in Canada we make it a statutory holiday, okay? Some countries in the world make it a national statutory holiday. And I would love that to happen for us. Okay, so the the genesis of International Women's Day, International Women's Month, has this call to action, the social activism, which I absolutely love because it originated, and we need to honor the history. Originated out of the social communist movements, labor movements at the time. Now, I'm not ascribing any particular value to that other than it came from a need from different places in the world that we needed to look at the economic situation, the social cultural situation of women. And one of the fundamental things I remember in Canada, one of the landmark cases, because part of my background is studying law and law and society, so in practical ways, is the person case. The day that finally in Canada, women were declared as a person. Because if you were not a person, I don't know if that means you're a cow or or a beaver, but you had to be declared a person in order to vote. We take voting for granted, right? We take voting for granted. The right to vote is to determine, in an electoral sense, a democratic right to choose. We might think, okay, that's back then. Is it still relevant now? Sure, it is. If we want to think about what's happened in our friends in the United States, yes, many parts of the world, this is still true. I'm just bringing it into a North American context because we happen to be situated here. The voting rights was repealed. Why do you need voting rights when the law changes? Because the way you implement law to ensure equality can either perpetuate inequality systemically, or you can bring transformation to bring equity. That's why you need it. So voter rights had to be in place throughout the United States because of Jim Crow racist segregation laws. So therefore, for example, if you don't have money to travel 3 hours and you can't get time off work to vote, you're likely not to vote. Access,
Mhm.
accessibility, support, information, participation. So, declaration of laws are not enough. You have to create programs, policies, practical, accessible ways so people can exercise their right to vote. So, if you take away that voting right, then some states no longer require to make the voting booth very accessible. I'm really blessed here in Toronto. I can walk 5 minutes and go to 2 voting booths.
Mhm.
That makes it easy for me to exercise my citizen's right to vote. But if you are not so blessed, and many people are not, to have that accessibility, you cannot. Or if we take other countries, voting can be a life threatening situation. Okay. That in those places where it may be fraught with other social political issues, you cannot go because it's not safe for you to vote.
Mhm.
The right to organize, okay, the right to associate, the right to organize. Do you get to define what an association is and organizing? I remember I was in Cambodia doing some work. I call it solidarity, which means I'm doing this because I feel common interest in my heart and soul and my vision of equity, equality, and love, peace, harmony for all souls, where I received a small per diem and they pay for my plane ticket because I love the work. Many organizations worldwide cannot pay us as a consultant, a manager, whatever it is that we do in life, right? Project and more, right? But if they can pay an honoraria that your needs are met. And what I learned at that moment was the reason this came to be was the fact that in rubber plantations, people were being paid for less than 10 cents a day, 10
Mhm.
cents a day for 10, 12 hours of work, 10 cents a day for 10 to 12 hours of work. Families are kept on these plantations in modern day slavery. So this is common in many places in the world. We must educate ourselves. So equality and equity also, Unji, is educating ourselves about the global circumstances affecting people that perhaps are not in our social circle or in our social network, and understand these are real issues that are affecting people, and decisions we make here in Canada affect someone overseas. Yes? So when those group of rubber plant workers dared to say they wanted a break, a water break, there was a groundswell of activity and some people were killed.
Mhm.
So we have to think about that, right? What is that? And if that was not necessarily a woman, but there is a commonality when you subjugate, I personally believe, when you subjugate and bring these conditions to squash people's right to expression, to live and breathe, to be their authentic self. We use that in North America in spirituality. What does authentic self mean when you don't even have the right to ask for a water break and this repressive regime comes?
Mm-hmm.
And then who are those corporations? They're corporations we're very familiar with that we pay into, we buy, or we use. I'm just highlighting the global intricacy of what we do. Be an informed consumer, be an informed purchaser, be an informed human being, be an informed love, peace, harmony ambassador, and a servant for humanity, and more. So the issue of gender equality is everybody's issue.
Mm-hmm.
Point. The issue of gender equality being human rights is a human right, and all of us share that responsibility and the privilege to bring transformation. So, violence against women and children, equality rights in the economic sphere, and reproductive rights has not really changed since I became active as a very, very young girl. There has been progress, there has been change. But if we only look at it from, oh, the people around me, then we think we've arrived. But we really haven't, because if you look a little deeper, like I did, when some laws were changed in the United States through the Supreme Court decision. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying one thing or another thing about reproductive rights. I'm simply saying if you don't even have access, right, then your reproductive rights to your health care and your choice about your body is not the same as someone who lives in Ottawa, in New York, in California. And here, some places in the Maritimes, these are smaller provinces for our friends that don't know, on the other side of our coast, Atlantic, you have to go 5 hours for hospital care to exercise your reproductive rights.
Mm-hmm.
If you have money to do that, it would make it very, very difficult. Or if we look at our, the elders and our Indigenous friends and communities, right, in the circumstances where they live, not having clean access to water. So, in my heart, women's equality only supports and enhances human equality and human rights across all spectrum. Women are the creators. It doesn't mean men are not the creators and men aren't caregivers, but our existence is out of balance. Master Sha teaches yin yang. We need to bring it back into balance, and not just by counting how many people, measured by the equity that they experience in their life. If I can take 20,000 breaths a day, 22,000 breaths a day, and it's clean air, someone else should be able to breathe 22,000 breaths a day with clean air.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Eun Ji.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Have to collect myself a little bit. I feel like I've been like surged with the spirit of activism and the spirit of really loving and caring about humanity, because that's what this is about. And you know, you touched on so many things. About the work that you did in Cambodia, very special work. And it reminds me of things that are going on in our modern day. I won't mention the name of the brand, but there is a fashion brand, fast fashion brand, and they're known for making clothes really quickly, really cheap. And you can get them online. They ship around the world. They're like a multi-billion-dollar company at this point. And recently, they did some like investigative research. Other countries did some investigative research, and they found that these workers work in deplorable conditions, and
Yeah.
they're also paid cents. Whether it was like 3 cents, it was something just unfathomable per hour. And again, just asking for basic human rights like a water break. Or what if, because they're so overworked, it's understandable if they have like a stitch out of alignment, and if they see something like that, if they're caught with that, then they're reprimanded, they're paid, they go home without pay for the whole day. So
Yeah.
these things are very real. And as you said, we are empowered as consumers, as people. We can vote at the election booth when it's time, hopefully, if we have access and we're able to. And we can also vote with our dollars. We can vote with our attention. We can vote with, these conversations that we have with each other for awareness, awakening, for support. And so, yeah, I just feel like that was really, really important to bring up because,
Let me just share, because thank you for the honor, everybody, for asking me to be the guest to just bring forward stories. Everybody has a story, and
mm,
I want to honor that. And I always believe everyone's story deserves a listener. So I
mhm,
one. So the garment industry and factory workers are really close to my heart because that's what my mother was in so-called sweatshop here, Toronto, down at Spadina and King. And
mm,
I remembered when my mom was really, really not well. And this is true, I think, of many people, many newcomers, whether it's refugee, or immigrants, or those that live in structural economic situations of poverty, is that you don't feel you cannot show up for work no matter how sick you are. And my mom always went to work so sick when she was sick. Why? Because there was deep fear she would lose her job. She in that factory was not organized. It was not organized. And this is the disparity we need to recognize. The labor movement here did excellent work to get us a 5-day workday. That didn't just happen, right? And reasonable break, employment standards, and more. But pay equity had to come into place because the gender disparity between female male in that circumstance of same education, same years of experience was on average 30 to 40% more by virtue of the fact of your gender. In my mom's case, at the time, now things are better, and this is what I put forward, right? From an equity perspective, I said to my labor friends and colleague, why are you not organizing in the sweatshop factory? Because there's a layer of race and gender and status that is different.
mm,
There are professional unions. All I'm trying to do is illustrate no matter what progressive movement or sector we're in, we all need to go deeper to understand the intersectionality. Again, who's not in the picture, who's not concerned of. Eventually, people did go into try to organize, and I'm very grateful for that. So my mom worked in a sweatshop factory, and after 30 years of employment, her thank you gift was a T-shirt that she made herself. So I have kept that as an indication of valuable history and a legacy of what people can toil to support the world or their family and community. And that is their thank you. But our way is to remember them. So I'm very grateful to her and all the women before us, and all the women now, and all the women that will come later. And I'm grateful also for the men that recognize that women's equality means equality for all human beings and more. So, Unji, that is what I wanted to share, and just pick up on that little point about the importance of going beyond a single lens and perspective is to see everyone in it. And there's going to be mistakes, there's always are, but we're in a learning journey and we're in a healing journey. So it's important to just have a listening heart and have this place of purity. Why are we doing it? Is it for recognition, or it's really to be in service of others? And really, those of us that can should be very silent so that those that normally don't have the opportunity to speak or have their stories or lives or set leadership role, they take the front line. So what is activism? I want to put a shout out, and Zakota's going to put it in the post. I had a friend I reconnected to very recently because she saw me on Facebook. I hadn't been on Facebook for 2.5 years. I've just gone back on. And she has a campaign, and that campaign is to help women, children in the Ukraine for humanitarian medical aid. So I just said to her, tell me a little bit about this, and I could let people know if they're interested to A, find out more, or two, to make a donation. Well, my friend, I've known her for years. We just work in different circles now. When the war started, she paid with her own plane ticket into the war conflict zone, rented a car, and anyone she saw that needed help, she took them and drove them out of that danger zone or over the border. So, this is an example of activism because something in your heart moves you and you just want to serve. And I encourage everyone to discover that for yourself. Of course, do not unnecessarily put yourself at risk. But if you're motivated to serve, whatever the cause is, do it. I was motivated to want to volunteer overseas. Nobody was interested in a young person that didn't graduate from school yet because I was university age. What did I do? I picked up the paper and I was looking for volunteerism. And they said that there was this mission, this tools for peace in a war conflict zone. And I said, I'm going to go. I went to the meeting. I learned that I had to pay my own way, and I learned to do little small electrical work because it was the electrical brigade. That's what they're called, the brotherhoods of electric brigade union trade unionists. And they taught me how to put wires together, got my backpack, got my boots, bought a ticket, and I went. So I say this to you, there's no shortage of opportunity, but do your research, do it in loving support of organizations that know better than us, and they're already there. Thank you, Eun.
Thank you, Venier. This is all so profound and important. Thank you, Dakota, for posting the link to the humanitarian medical aid for women and children in Ukraine. Really, really important, wonderful cause. Thank you so much. And we have more impassioned, um, feedback from people. Just going through some of our comments here. Darlene says, I have a female friend in the Philippines on Facebook, and she only gets paid $140 a month and she can't even afford to get a TV. So
Thank
these are some of the conditions of our women around the world. And Claudia says, that is like modern day slavery. We have the power to boycott these companies. Like one of the big companies buys up wells and bottles water, and people have no more water anymore. So when we stop buying from these companies, we can change the world. They did that in the 70s, stopped buying petrol from one of the big petrol companies who wanted to dump one of their petrol racks into the ocean. They were then forced to drag it to land and dismantle it as they lost so much money. And when they did that, a rainbow formed over the ocean. Very profound. Beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing, beloved Claudia. And Maria Elena says, women mean equality. That's right. I agree and want to send congratulations to your advice and good speech.
Thank you.
So much. Sean Murphy says, introspection and reflection are important to truly evaluate equality, and that will be different everywhere, as you shared. Thank you. Sybil from Turkey says, I wouldn't want to compete with anyone on this issue, but the reality in my country, Turkey, is in many ways unbearable. I hope more love, peace, harmony becomes possible everywhere.
Thank you. You know, I just want to make a comment and we'll lead into a meditation to bring deeper love, compassion, transformation to everything we talked about, everything we may have felt and thought, but not articulated. So, I want to say what Sybil's bringing up. In my humble experience, both really as a lived experience and then those wonderful elders in my life who paved the way for me to learn, from them, is this. It only takes one. One becomes the critical mass for the mass, and it replicates and it will grow. I'm always inspired by real life stories that may not be known in the history books or in our history books, but not in the mainstream, because we recognize the stories of heroes and leaders in our everyday life may not be told because it is the conqueror that gets to tell the stories, right? And ours are invisible, or they tell the stories from their perspective. We are looked at differently. It takes one, 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 one. And if we go deeper in Master Shah's understanding, one is everyone and everything. When we connect to the Tao, the source field of love, peace, and harmony. But at the human level, one person has an awakening in consciousness, and then talks to the person and gives them love on this side, and then talks to the person on this side. And that's how it started. I mean, I volunteered in the Toronto Rape Crisis Center sexual assault community. And it started because women started talking in their basements and their kitchen. We need a service to help others that are experiencing sexual violence. So, takes one. So let us do that now, Eun Ji. And it's my honor to bring this session component to a close. We're going to do a very short, powerful oneness, love, peace, and harmony meditation. We're going to do it for just 3 minutes because we want to get our friend Stephen on the air. And we thank you for staying back. The show is going a little longer, but we're really grateful. So, everyone, connect to the message of love, peace, and harmony, the sacred calligraphy field, the oneness field. We're going to chant and meditate and connect to the source message, which is inherently in every single soul, and serve whatever thoughts, emotions, perceptions that have come up to bring healing and transformation to everyone, recognizing the greatest creation power of all. Make your request. Be a servant at this time. Start. So we gently connect with the message of love, peace, and harmony in every cell, in all aspects of ourselves, especially our radiant, powerful spiritual heart. As messengers, as servants of this new consciousness, which is really an old consciousness of oneness. Express love and gratitude to all those we've called in, all those that we thought of with loving care and attention. We thank the sacred code and the calligraphy created by Master Sha. We say, how. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, everyone, we're making a slight adjustment to the way we end, and we will not show the donor recognition field today, and I apologize. We are so engaged. We went a little overtime. I thank you for your patience and staying with us. But stay tuned for next week. We'll have another incredible show for you. And we would love, really love your feedback. And we will now just close by saying, I appreciate all of you. I love you. And I got some messages on live stream. And Karen Bain and Atika, thank you for letting me know you love my little stories. We have to bring joy, joy to places that may not always be, especially if there's been pain or more of separation. So thank you, everyone, for your sharing. We thank Eun Ji for her wonderful hosting today, Zakota and Stephen, who's always there, and the whole team. Love you, love you, love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you're called to, check out the link, Women in Humanitarian Medical Aid in the Ukraine, Delivering Women and Children to Safety, or Medical Supplies. Grassroots initiative. I love grassroots action. Peace be with you, everyone. Have a celebratory month. Continue to recognize women's equality is human rights for everyone, and it is nurturing and supportive. And that is how we'll all get to the place one day soon of love, peace, and harmony for everyone and everything, including our dear beloved Mother Earth and all our animal friends. Bye bye.